It's a version of events that you won't read about in the Bible, but it's claimed by some that a deal was done with the Roman governor in Jerusalem at the time, Pontius Pilate, to secretly get the body of Jesus out of the city at the time of the crucifixion, possibly dead, possibly alive, maybe even sedated. And this explains why it's claimed no body was found in his tomb. But is it true?
Just from reading the Bible, there's enough evidence to say that it's unlikely that Jesus died on the cross. He didn't have his legs broken. He wasn't on the cross long enough to die. It's a long, slow, painful death, crucifixion. But they took him down. But then shortly after, Jesus is walking around again. And clearly, if he is the king of the Jews, he's a major threat to Roman rule because he could spark an uprising. So he has to disappear. And then Mary leaves, supposedly, the Holy Land, according to the Book of the Saints, and goes to France. The question is, did she take Jesus with her? Or did she take the body? What happened?
When Jesus was crucified by the Romans, Mary Magdalene was there supporting him in his final terrifying moments and mourning his death. She also discovers the empty tomb, and she's a witness to the resurrection. In art, she's often semi-naked, or an isolated hermit repenting for her sins in the wilderness, an outcast. But we know her best as a prostitute. Powerful as this image may be, for many scholars and historians, it's not the story of the real Mary Magdalene. She is mentioned in each of the 4 Gospels in the New Testament, but not once does it mention that she was a prostitute or a sinner.
The biblical Mary Magdalene is seen as quite of a passive figure, as a woman to be saved. So if you kind of think of any fairy tale, she's sort of the beautiful princess that's there to be saved, and she's a sinner and she repents, and she kind of comes up at very sort of seminal moments in Jesus's life. But there's some historians that believe that the real Mary Magdalene was much more involved in the way that Jesus developed his ideas, in supporting him. In fact, as perhaps being that 13th apostle that people often speak of.
She's possibly a woman that lived near the Sea of Galilee in a small fishing village. She's possibly from Ethiopia, in Magdala there. She's possibly from Egypt. So it's very difficult to sort of pick one story and say, this is our real Mary Magdalene.
So the church then believes that Mary Magdalene was a real person. That's true, right?
Yes.
We know Mary Magdalene was real.
Yes.
That she was once a prostitute, but was reformed.
Yes, repentant, yes.
Repentant.
Yes, yes.
And it's her conversion from a prostitute to a disciple of Christ that is the important message of that.
Yes. Yes, really. Really. It's a really, really way of real life.
Mary Magdalene is said to have retired to a cave on a hill near Marseille called Saint Baume, where she gave herself up to a life of penance for 30 years. The cave is now a Christian pilgrimage site. Magdalene expert and author Lynn Picknett agreed to come along.
This is just the most amazing place.
It's almost like it's like a sort of church that's been cut into.
If you took the actual cave away, it is a church. I mean, it looks like any, you get in a very high-quality church, but it's the whole atmosphere, because it is the grotto that she was supposed to have spent the last 3 decades of her life in. There's imbued with this extraordinary magical ambience.
So, according to the legend, Mary Magdalene she lived here for 30 years.
Yes, according to the legend.
And what was she doing? Was she hiding out, or?
Well, maybe she was hiding out, because part of the traditional story is, she was fleeing from the Holy Land because of persecution of the early Christians. So maybe she was partly hiding. But essentially, it was the ultimate spiritual retreat. She came here, and it is said that she spent all that time in meditation, prayer, and penitence for her sins, and obviously meditating upon Jesus and the crucifixion and so on, and her life as a disciple.
I do believe that Mary Magdalene had special powers, mystic, healing, mediumistic, supernatural, whatever supernatural means. It's just something that we didn't understand at the time. And so she was much revered because of it, a priestess, a goddess, whatever you want to call her.
What is religion if it's not about believing the unbelievable? So actually, when you look at Jesus and you look at Mary Magdalene is so much easier to believe. She's flawed like the rest of us. She's, there's a transformative element like the rest of us. So one has to wonder if this woman, that was kind of in the background the whole time, didn't play a much bigger role.
Now go preach. Go preach this gospel to your holy kingdom. Share with them your learnings.
And obviously this chapel here is obviously a later addition.
Yes, it was set up and is still maintained to this day by the Dominican order of monks. Right. Who are specially dedicated to her, and in this place, obviously, they maintain it beautifully and with enormous heart and soul. And it just pilgrims come here, they still come here because of her.
What I don't understand is if she's travelled over here to spread the word of Jesus, why has she spent 30 years on her own in a cave?
It doesn't work, does it? It doesn't hang together at all. Although the idea seemed to be, in the traditional story, insofar as you can kind of piece it together, that the chronology was she converted the whole of Provence, and then she retired to the cave. And then presumably people made the tricky journey up to see her on a one-to-one basis or something to have a chat. But that's extrapolation from the few facts that we have, or the few bits of tradition that we have.
When you come here, it's amazing how many visitors and pilgrims are deeply moved by the whole Mary Magdalene story. Not least because, I'm sure, she'd been maligned by the Bible for so long. It's astonishing to think that the church treated her as a prostitute until 1969. And yet nowadays, to see her as a healer, a minister, and a leading advocate of Christianity doesn't seem in the least bit strange.